All right. Let's see what we got here this morning. Chris Courtney here, new Pragmatic. It's time for the feedback loop. It's a lovely, lovely rainy Tuesday here in Chicago, coming to you, and I hope that wherever you're sheltering in place, I hope you're well. We've got a couple things in here this morning. First, an announcement. We released a new video last night. I I've been talking about the new chapter that's about to come out on components, and this was talking on yesterday's show about how basically the background, how all these things came to play, and one of the things that components are a portion of a much larger thing, a design system. Design systems all basically were born and bred out of style guides and guidelines that we used to use for print design. Design systems have expanded far beyond what we used to do with regard to style guides, but there's still that major component of style and visual inside of them. It's not like it went away. It just like other things were built around it, and that's that's the difference between like a style guide and a system. But there's still that style component, and it's much easier to create components, which is what this chapter is all about. It's about how to create components when you have styles to base them on. And specifically in this video, it's about color and typography, how to create those two specific types of styles inside of Figma. So that was released last night. It's kind of interesting. I find myself working in a couple of different directions when it comes to styles. I tend to either start and begin creating, and then kind of get a loose feel for what I'm doing, and then I go create styles so that the subsequent pages and components and things that I make are ready to go. And then in other cases where I kind of have some assets to begin with, but maybe maybe it's a situation where the file that I'm basically adopting or inheriting from somebody else, it just hasn't been formalized yet. So it's like I'm working with somebody else's prior work, but it's my first time through. So I'll go through and I'll create some styles based on what I'm seeing because we haven't documented these things properly yet. So there's a couple of different ways that you can go about doing it. There's no wrong time to do it except waiting. You don't want, if there are things that you're going to be using as your project moves forward, that's a great time to stop and say, okay, let's just create a style here. Let's formalize this so that we have some groundwork laid to move forward and build upon. If you can do that, I think you're in a good spot. But that said, we've got a couple of projects here this morning. Kara is turning in her color for navigation work, and Rebecca is actually seeking some help and assistance. Rebecca had a crazy weekend. I caught wind of snakes and everything else. So she seems to have lost her way on Elementor, and again, every time I touch Elementor, it's as if I'm gaining 100% of my experience with Elementor as we go. But a lot of what my advantage is with Elementor is the fact that, having done design work for 20 years, I can kind of guess where the controls are going to be. It's almost like I've flown planes before, and now I'm in a new plane. I've never seen this plane before, but the controls are in the same basic areas. So so much of what I'm going to be showing with Elementor is based off that premise of I kind of know where the controls are. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and let's get this underway. So you know what? I'm just going to start here with Elementor because it's literally on my screen right now. If we look at ye old knife doctor site. And again, Rebecca, I'm not quite sure where you're at with ye old knife doctor. Um, so you've got the photo and all that in here. We're going to edit this header. And as we're editing the header, it's going to pop up Elementor. And the problem that we had was there were some adjustments made to Elementor in the interim between the last project and the new project. And what Rebecca did is she began, like, this is all part of the header, which is not ideal. So what we want to do is we want to save this section as a template. So this section would basically be anything down to this point. Okay, so the section here is basically all the things that are involved with this hero unit. So I'm going to save this as a template, and we're going to call this one hero. And actually, I'm just going to call this one example, because I think if I captured from your question, you blanked out. It says here you blanked out on how to save sections in Elementor. So I'm saving this section to the library, okay? So here's example section, and I'm going to name this one 0331 because I want you to delete this, okay? At some point when you clean up the back end of this file, I want you to delete what we're doing here. So now we have this example section 0331. I'm going to preview it just so we can get a look at it. So here is example section 0331, and you can see it's right there. Now the trouble that we get into here is right now we're looking at the home page, and for the preview it like throws it to the bottom. The header is everything, which means the question I've captured before. Okay, so this is the footer. Like the footer is 0326 is the footer is here. The question I've captured before is, well, Chris, this looks fine. You can go in and style it a little differently, but this looks like a functioning design. What would be the problem with just using this? Well, everything that's built into the header goes onto every page, which would mean this entire page appears over and over and over again for every page that she's created. So you can't have that. So we're going to have to go in, and when you get into, so we'll close that. The trick here is we need to go in and delete these sections away. Again, Rebecca, you're going to hit that magical X right there to delete the section. And then you're going to begin deleting these other sections away so that you can rebuild this as the header, and then the hero, and then the other elements that are going to be involved. You don't want this all attached to the same header file. I'm not going to update this because I want to make sure that you are going through and editing that. And I'd hate to change a lot because this is the live site. So I'm going to leave this page. This is the live site. I do not want to save changes. They're going to change your live site. I want you to go through and definitely make those changes. And it says the last changes that were made here were 5 days ago. So there's a lot of work to do here on the header, but save as a template. Make sure that goes into your templates, and then reconstruct the page. You've got all the parts. Like we went through and saved all the parts. And the reason I know that is if we go over here to all pages, there is a test that we did, and we can preview it here. We ran this 0326 test, and these are all the sections that we were working with. Like this is not the let's see here. Let's edit. For some reason it gave me the single page. Wasn't looking for that. Oh, I must have gone down the single page. But the header is still the header. So to make this work, we have to go through and get rid of those aspects of the header. Otherwise, they're going to show up on every page. So for the single page, if we delete away these sections, like there's literally nothing on the page right now. So I'm going to go to the templates, and we're going to say is this the header that we have? I'm not sure if this is the header. Sure. This again was our test page, so it's not connected to anything live on the site. Yeah, and the entire header is still here. So that's therein lies the problem. We've got to get rid of that header. So really the thing to do here would be to come back, delete all of these. It's dawning on me now. This is where we left it. We left it that you were going to go through and edit the various pieces of this. I'm not sure why it says content area here, but now I want to come through and say save as template. I'm going to save this as header 0331. Save it. And with that saved as header 0331, I could insert it. Pretty sure that's going to give me two headers, so I'm going to have to delete one of them. Yep, there we go. So I'll delete this top one. Actually, I will just insert it always changes the order, and I'm not quite sure how to get it to reorder itself. So there's this header. I'm going to come through and I'm going to grab Navigator and see if we can get rid of. Yeah, so we're going to delete that top one away. Delete. So there's our header. We're going to now drag in the hero. So we could use hero 0326, insert, and now there's the hero, and now we can put other elements onto this page. But now you've got a header that is its own, that you didn't have before. You have this hero section, and then you can continue adding these widgets after that. This is what I would encourage you to do on that main page that we haven't done as of yet. And keep in mind, I created a new header. I did not edit your existing header. So if we go back over to theknifedoctor.com, which I'm going to do right now. Yeah, we'll leave this page. I want nothing to do with this page. I just want to make sure that the Knife Doctor live site. Yeah, so your live site is still there. you want to focus on editing this down, but you have all the component parts to do this. Okay, so you're not gonna get lost. Just follow my lead on save template, name it, edit that existing header, or actually just remove that existing header and put this back together with those component parts that we've created. Components, hey, components. Who doesn't love a good component, really? Checking in on general. Almost about the top 10,000 views. That'll be nice. Let's go ahead and close this down because Kara's got some questions. Kara has her Figma file here, and oddly enough, we have it here. And this is one of the adjustments I'm going to make to this file is, I always come back to the Designer's Dictionary of Color, and I find myself referencing the nearest color wheel that I can get my hands on because, I've been using color for, I don't know. I've been thinking seriously about color for probably 20 years. And I still sometimes catch myself going, well, I know what complementary is. I know what monochromatic is. What is triadic again? Like, what are the... Yeah, I can see triadic. It's 3 colors equally spaced on the wheel. I can see triadic when it's set to the presets in my head. But when somebody else uses it, and they have the presets readjust it in their head to where I have to look at the wheel and go, okay, I'm starting at yellow, and then I go to blue, and then I get the red. Or I'm starting at green, and then I go to pink, and then I get the orange or whatever. So for me, I have to reorient what certain terminology means, like analogous. Like, is it analogous if purple and yellow are in it? Well, maybe. Depends on what's between them. Like, are all the things between? So, and that's really where we begin our conversation here. Kara is working through the color palette exercise, and we're basically just trying to identify how colors are being used. And obviously, in this particular instance, there's 2 colors that really jump out. The light blues here are really just there for like a background. They are your standard grays that you'll see utilized on other sites. The 2 colors that are really doing all the work here are really these 2 right here. And this is the dominant color. This is the action color though. Everywhere that you have action going on, it's join now here. You come down here toward the bottom, it's join now again. That's the color that's being used for the buttons, for the links, probably also for this typography. So while this color is being used to splash and kind of draw your eye around and allow you to move, this color is being used for all the elements that you're going to interact with. So, you have monochromatic here, and that is true. I do feel like this is mostly a blue site. But there is a bit of analogous going on here because we have some blues, we have some yellows, we have some greens, and those all move on the wheel together. So I could make the leap with you that that it is not an accident that this selection here isn't orange. If this was orange, it would totally begin to bust this combination up. The greens wouldn't make as much sense. It would become more complementary, honestly, between the blues and the orange, and then you might not want the green there at all because it would be this weird sequencing. So I like what you've called to attention here. As we move over, this is you picked up on something that I was talking about with Eve a few weeks ago. How there's a subtle complementary feel to this, and it's because of the greens. Like, there's a definite green here, and the light salmon color. It's a heavily tinted red that's being called in. So there's definitely a subtle complementary vibe to this. The dominant color is this active, deeper salmon color, for lack of a better term, and the easiest thing when you get into colors like this, the easiest thing I know to do is just begin to identify them by their hex code, F98163, or you could also say salmon. It's definitely not red, but the hex code is helpful because it removes all the ambiguities about it. There's no arguing over the hex code. But I do think overall you've identified that subtle play here. If the green was heavy, it would call too much attention to it. Same for if the pinkish salmon was deeper, it would not meet it would shift really toward monochromatic. And you would really begin to question whether that light green should be there at all. As we move over, now analogous was something that I didn't see right away when working with this selection from Brand New, and as you point out, we've got a few things here. The dominant color is it's just gray. It's just a gray canvas that these other colors kind of set on top of. But when you point it out, it's got a light blue, it's got a light purple, it's got a light green, it's got a light yellow. This moves around the wheel together, and they are a consistent pastel. I don't have any sticky notes that quite match this pastel color, but it definitely holds that sticky note vibe. I have sticky notes that are pretty bright, but these are pastel in the same way that these are bright. They are consistent in their saturation. So analogous it is there. Here, caffeine is extremely monochromatic. There's nothing else going on here except for the greens. The greens are being used very well, in my opinion. The only place this site gets weird is down here toward the bottom. The start your application action call to action is in this dark, deep, blackish blue. It's a blue green, but it's very, very, very deep. And the only thing that throws me off there is they could have done this in white and not entered that as an action color, because it could have been white and green. It's very well done. I love this page. I like the monochromatic approach to it. But down at the bottom, that threw me for a loop. It's like, why did you do that there? I'd like to study the rest of their site more. And then of course this is the page that I get the most questions about. Generated photos. A lot of people, when we're always looking for like images and headshots to use for to represent users, and these are in fact photos that you can use pretty easily because they're not real people. These are all generated by artificial intelligence. None of these models that you're seeing here are actually humans. They are just compositions that were created for use. And you can see a lot of people utilize this. Fast Company, BBC, The Verge. So what's interesting here, and I think you've done a very good job of identifying the dominant color here. The color that matters is not this menagerie of colors that's all kind of bouncing around. There's a lot of them. Okay, there's a lot of distracting colors. They're just kind of moving everywhere. It's really this blue. This blue is the action color. And as you go down and you work your way through the site, you see it consistently used. Notify me. Start browsing. Browse photos. The get API access, that's a secondary concern. We're just going to outline that. The sign in, it's secondary. It's up there, but it's secondary. I do think this has a bit of a complementary feel to it. I see the orange and blue used a lot, but I definitely also get the vibe of other. Mainly, the dominant color is the green, purple, and orange. are green, purple, and orange are triadic, and when you look at that on the board, that's true. Green, purple, and orange, you definitely could make a case that it is triadic, but there's so much going on here. I don't necessarily know that that was the plan. I don't know if they went in and said, "Oh, let's, this is going to be triadic." Here, I feel very much like somebody sat down and specifically said, "What if we just did all green?" I can see that coming out. Here, it's like, I want to use a bunch of images. Maybe we could use some different colors in the background. And understanding how what was the design rooted in? The color palette feels very haphazard here. Color palette feels very deliberate here. In many ways, if you look at Caffeine and Generate Photos next to one another, Caffeine probably had a branding guideline to start with. Generate Photos hadn't thought about it. That's not me judging either of them, but that's just a different experience from a client designer relationship level. Like, if you're going in with some branding guidelines established, you're going to end up on the other side of it with a very different site. I suspect Generate Photos did not have that branding guideline. They were kind of building this as their company. Oh, wow, we need a company website. We've put a lot of attention into the AI, but we need branding. Caffeine was like, oh, it's got to be green, and it's, we're going to do these illustrations. I know a guy or a girl. I know a person, right? You know how that goes. So all three of these, or not all three, all five of these, I think are really great fodder for conversations around design. I'm a sucker for these illustrations. I did stay particularly away from anything that had like giant photo across the top, because I just feel like in those instances it's almost monochromatic by default, because the photography is meant to shine through and provide the pop. But I feel like we can talk about photography and color usage around photography another day. Finally, I want to come in and look at your second part of the exercise. So Kara was working through this portion where we're doing light mode and dark mode, and Kara really brought up a good point. When you're going through the material guidelines for, and I'm going to ungroup this. When you're going through the material guidelines, there is this concept where, we're going to just do these grays, and I'm going to make it like 20%, and you get this pressed version of it, or you get this adjusted for the dark mode version of it. That's the tints are 20% deeper, 7% more gray to it. So there, Kara had some questions there that I thought were very, very logical. But overall, what I feel like is important here is that when we're working with our palettes, we understand that we don't have to use everything in every screen, particularly in mobile. There's going to be colors that are part of a palette that don't have a usefulness on every screen. As you can see here, Kara rightly avoided the green and purple, sticking primarily with the dark blue, the teal for most everything here. The same applies for dark mode. It's just I believe that she went maybe just pure black with the background. This is an exercise in restraint. Here, the labels are the same teal as the header, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I could make an argument that maybe this could be teal as well, although it probably would drop back more so than it is right now. I can tell very easily that this is selected, can I do the same over here? And when it's in white, I can. So I really feel like in an exercise in restraint, Carrie, you did really well. I like I like the decision making here. Um, you could have used more color had you wanted to, but that becomes a strategic decision and frankly risk when you're just getting your feet wet and you're kind of feeling out where you're going. But I think that these were really well done, and I like your observations overall about color on exercise one. I think you did a exemplary job, kind of really looking at the schemes that were in play. Good work there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this edition of the Feedback Loop. I've got a wide variety of stuff that is half baked, and I want to get it out. I want to get it out in the wild. I'm really excited. I know this is time. This is a time where everybody is like all holed up, and we're sheltering in place. But it dawned on me that the work that I'm doing right now, this is the 28th exercise that I'm about to release, and I've got actually two more that are right behind it that kind of build off the same stuff. So we're gonna get to 30 really fast, and that feels good to have that kind of output, to be giving you the opportunity to work through that number of different tasks that associate with design. We're really going to be leaning in to heavy build activities now, and this is where all of our interface design work begins to pay off. So I'm going to end this so I can go work on that. But if you have questions, you know where to find me. Find me in Discord, and otherwise, I will chat with all of you again tomorrow. Take care.